All right, so we have collected 3 coins, level complete. So what we've got to do now is send our player on to level 2. The way we're going to do that is by making a complete copy of everything we have in this scene. So Blender uses a scene system. I'll just switch screencast keys back on. For what it's worth, so up here in the top right-hand side, you can see there are a couple of buttons here. If we use this little drop down, it shows us that we have one scene called scene. So we're going to make a new scene with this new scene button. So first of all, we'll select everything with A. That selects everything that we have in this scene, everything that, every single asset. And we are going to choose the new scene option and then select full copy. Okay, so it will make a full copy. It'll make a new scene, and it will duplicate everything we have in this scene for the new one. It's probably, in the long term, more sensible to choose a linked copy. The fact that we're not doing that means that if we do change the design of our coin in scene 1, it won't update in scene 2. So you could see the benefit of choosing a linked copy if you're going to be making lots and lots of different levels. But since we've only got 2 levels, actually, in the long run, I think it'll be less complicated if we just keep all our assets unlinked for the time being. So new scene button, and then we choose full copy. And now we've got scene and scene 001. So we're going to start naming these. So we'll just choose this one and call it level 2. Just switch back to our original scene and call it level 1. And let's just check. So if notice the position of the empties in level 1, and in level 2 we've got this this straight duplicate. You can see all the assets have been renamed slightly using a numbering system to show that they are a different version of the assets from level 1. So let's just double check. In level 2, if we move that empty, just move it on the x-axis a little bit and just check that it doesn't update in level 1. So in level 1, we're still in the same position. So we've got a bit of a head start in level 2. We can start moving things around and thinking about how we might lay out the level design in level 2 based on what we had in the first level. Before we do that, let's set up the condition in level 1, which will enable us to switch to level 2. So let's recap what's happening on this cube. So on this cube, we have the collision sensor, which will activate when it detects a collision with the coin object. Okay, we have that property called coin on the coin object, which is hidden. Remember, it's in our collectibles collection there. But that coin has the property coin. So when the cube detects a collision with that coin, we play a sound, and we add 1 to our score property here, and we send a message got coin, which is picked up. That message is received by our interface to update the score. I think what I'm going to do is just quickly rename some of these. So this collision sensor is going to be called collect coin. I'm just going to rename this message got coin so I can see it when it's collapsed, so I can remind myself what that message is. And this score is going to be, this property is called score. Let's not worry too much about the sound. Okay, so what are we doing? We need to check, we need to think about what the condition is that needs to be met before we go into level 2. For the time being, we'll just look for a score of 3. So that score property that we added earlier on is now going to be quite helpful for that. So we'll check when that score property equals 3. When we play the game, our score interface updates, but we've also got this in-game property, this in-game variable, which is also updated. So that's what we'll use to check. So we need a sensor that's checking a property. So on the coin, property sensor, and we need to check that score equals 3. So we'll leave the evaluation type to equal, and we're going to choose the score property. That's what we want to check, and we'll add in a number 3. And then what we're going to do. So the most straightforward way to do this would be to just select a scene actuator, so that when score equals 3, we set the scene to level 2. But actually, we want to do a couple of things at this point. We want to send a message to scene 2 to make sure our score updates. Because if you notice, we'll try this out and see what happens. If I link up our property sensor with our scene sensor and get a score of 3, I didn't set the scene. Set the scene to level 2. 1, 2, 3. So it's switching, but our score has gone back to 0. So that's something that we want to improve on. So instead of just doing that directly, what we'll do is we'll send another message to the interface in the second scene that the score should be 3. So we're just going to send a message with the subject 3 when property score equals 3. This will make sense soon. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a sensor that will check when this message is finished sending and then move us on to level 2. And we do that with an actuator sensor. So remember, we're using sensors in this column, controllers here, and these are all actuators. So this actuator sensor is going to check the value of this actuator here. So we'll choose what actuator we'd like to use. So let's give this message a name, 3, so it can be found more easily. So we'll choose the 3 actuator, and we will then set our scene. So this is a really, really handy sensor to know about. This actuator will check that the message 3 is finished and then do something. In this case, set our scene to scene level 2. I've got a sneaking suspicion this won't work immediately. I think we may have a couple of other settings. Let's just try it. Think positive. Okay, so that hasn't worked because we've got a couple of things to do first. So the first one is we're going to set our property to true level triggering just by clicking on this little up arrow. So by default, sensors send out a pulse when they become true. So when this score property equals 3, it sends out a pulse saying go, do something. We want it to keep doing that. We want it to be doing that sort of constantly. And then it will send out our message 3. And then our actuator actually needs to go through a NAND controller. When it comes to these different settings, my recommendation would be to check the UPBGE manual, okay, so that you can understand what these are doing. So a NAND controller will activate when one of the sensors that's connected to it evaluates as false. So once that actuator has finished, once that message has been sent and has stopped sending, that's what the NAND controller is doing. It's detecting that has finished doing its business, then it should send us to level 2. So let's test that. Perfect. Score is still equal to 0, but we are sending when we arrive in level 2, but we are sending that message 3 when score equals 3. So let's fix that. If we switch to level 2, and we want to come over to our score text object here. So this is updating when it gets the message got coin. We also want it to update when it gets the message 3. So when we arrive on here, I mean, you don't have to do it like this. I don't suppose you could zero out the score for every level. It's up to you. But in case you wanted to carry the score across, we will do that now. So we want a property actuator, So when it gets the message 3, we're going to assign that text property a value of 3. Now, I think that might cause problems for adding consecutive values. When we collect the next coin, we need to go up to 4. Let's just check that. We'll go back to level 1. We need to play from level 1 here. Whoop. There we are. That gets a little bit confusing sometimes. So P to play, 1, 2, 3, and our score is 3. Will it let us update? Oh, no, that works fine. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Our score variable isn't increasing anymore, but if that causes any problems, we can come back and fix that. As long as our score interface is updating, then we should be reasonably happy. Yep, so as long as that score carries over, and yeah, like I said, you don't have to do that. So that's the full copy. The next thing we need to do is set up some kind of obstacle on level 2 so that we can complete the game. And we will do that next.